I'm John. This is Dennis. We like to talk about business related stuff on our podcast, but obviously we're going to exchange a lot of thoughts, banters, and opportunities on this call. The topic today I want to bring up is elevator pitch. I'm not sure if anyone heard of this term before, but this was something that popped up recently on my feed, and I felt that, hey, why don't we have a chat about this? Dennis, do you know what elevator pitch means?
In my experience, or what I've heard from elevator pitches, it's like if you're in a small confined space with one other individual, how do you sell and present yourself so that that person knows who you are? Is that correct? Or am I missing the ball there?
Yeah, I'm pretty like that's pretty much what it is. But I guess it's literally that definition. Yes, confined space, but it's more like, you know, you should have something prepared, whether it's experience, whether, you're looking for a new job, you're trying to sell something, you're maybe going to ask a girl out or a guy out, but you walking into an elevator, you don't stay in an elevator for a long time. You may be only in an elevator for like a few minutes or even less than a minute. So the concept of an elevator pitch is to, you know, be able to present yourself and articulate and get your point across to the other person in the time span of, how long you might spend in an elevator. Um, the literal definition, we can Google it right now, but that's kind of my interpretation of an elevator pitch.
Nice. You know what? Since we have the time and opportunity, I will look that up. Let's see what does Google have for our answers to be to what is elevator pitch is. Definition of an elevator pitch. So, the very first result I'm getting here is actually a, a succinct and persuasive sales pitch. So I don't think we sway too far from that, but Google has a more nice and concise definition. But John, how and why do we want to discuss about elevator pitch? How do we get here?
Yeah. So obviously, I learned of this term when I was in school, at university. And, in university, you can join, I guess, business clubs. And the school that Dennis and I went to, we actually had a pretty long escalator. It's not like your standard one-story escalator. I think that escalator was at least three floors. So, there's a little bit more time you spend on the escalator before you get to that next step. Dennis, I don't know, you remember the escalator I'm talking about?
Yeah, I really do, and I think if my memory serves me correctly, it actually goes up 7 floors. So first level is actually seventh floor of the building, and then the eighth and nine is like level 2 and 3. But yeah, it takes a good solid like five minutes to get to your first floor.
Yeah, so pretty much, I guess that was a nice kind of play on elevator pitch. They should have called it escalator pitch because it wasn't on an elevator.
Yeah.
But pretty much the concept was, I think it was something, it's not dumb, but very cliche, sell me this pen type of role play. But, now that Dennis and I are out of school, I find that I've been using elevator pitch a lot, whether it's at work, personal relationships. And, I think just selling is something that you do subconsciously on like every day of your life. It doesn't matter if you're really just selling for, something for money or monetary. You're actually selling ideas. You're selling, persuasion. If I want Dennis to, drive his new car to, my area, I gotta persuade him. Unless Dennis is just so kind to, come all the way, out of kind of his heart, 30-minute drive just to come say hi, right? It's a
Yeah.
persuasion game, right? So that's why I want to talk about elevator pitch today.
Hmm. And yeah, I think elevator pitches is a skill that everybody needs to use at one point in their lives. I witnessed it myself just the other day. Many of you do not know this, but I do practice martial arts. My instructor, or who I call Sifu, does this full time. However, he is very on the business side, not as strong as he is on the martial arts side. So what happened was, because of COVID restrictions, we've been practicing outdoors in the park. So we get a lot of audience. We have ages ranging from kids to seniors. And then one day, there was I think a young adult, I would say in his like mid late 20s, came to us and I kind of asked what we're doing, right? At the time, it was only me and my sifu who had T-shirts that was about our martial arts school, and everyone didn't have that. So he was still a little clueless, and he came to my instructor to ask what it is, right? My instructor gave this whole spiel about the origins and things like that, right? And to me, like when I heard it, it didn't attract or didn't kind of give him the direct answer. So this was something that I kind of talked to him aside. I'm like, well, I think we may have lost the lead there in order for him to join our class because he didn't get the the main reason or main, what's the word here, John? I'm looking for the meat or
You're not compelling enough. You weren't.
exactly not compelling enough. He doesn't get the take away anything that be like want him to pursue it or anything like that, right? So that is a loss on his part. He may have learned to continue, giving those pointers, but John, what do you think is pieces or components, or maybe on that example, or maybe another example of your experience that would be the best sales pitch or get to something more useful in your case?
Yeah, no, that's a great question for me, just because, I do practice it a lot on my, professional career. I'm in HR, so, there's a lot of times where, you know, I'm not selling anything to anyone, but I need to sell ideas or sell, discussions, to solve problems, right? So I think, there is a structure to elevator pitch. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm an full expert at this, but I think I do have, some experience under my belt that I can say I'm pretty confident in, how to execute a proper elevator pitch. I would say rule number one, you should know your shit. Excuse my French. So I believe your Sifu, knows martial arts, Wing Chun very well. If you don't know what Wing Chun is, Google Ip Man. That's Wing Chun. You don't need to watch any history television. Just watch the Ip Man movies, and you'll know what Wing Chun is. Um, so I think just having a very strong knowledge base makes you an expert. Where I don't know if your Sifu presented himself as a subject matter expert or it just seems more of a sales pitch to get the person into the club. So I think rule number one, you need to have, be an authority figure in, for someone to listen to, to listen to you, right? Like, why should they listen to you? Have you demonstrated that you are a subject matter expert in that field? Passing back to you, Dennis, did your Sifu, presented himself as that?
Well, I would say yes because he did. This individual that came to us or asked a question. He was observing from afar. He knew that this Masifu was the main guy to go to because of his outfit and his experience just by knocking us around. I think it was fairly simple for him to be. I don't know. He was the individual to go to.
All right. Perfect. I want to now kind of touch on my second point. I think the number two, and maybe could be tied for number one, like most important, is trust. When you do an elevator pitch, you have such a short time frame with, an individual, and you're pretty much talking to a stranger. And put it this way, do you feel more inclined to buy something off a friend that or you buy it off a stranger? If you pick the second one, okay, but typically you would buy from someone you trust, right? So within such a short time, you're not going to become friends, but you need to break down the barrier of, the stranger and stranger relationship and establish trust. trust can be established in many ways. I think the first one is having the authority, showing them that you know what you're talking about. Number two is maybe the way you present yourself, right? Really depends on the context of the situation. Typically, an elevator pitch, Dennis, you mentioned in the explanation, the definition, it's a sales pitch. And sales sometimes get a very bad image. You're not a you might seem kind of like a sleazy salesman, like people are going to put their defense up. How do you turn it around where it's not exactly a sales pitch, it's more just like a relationship, like, hey, I'm Sifu. Yep. I've been teaching x amount of years of Wing Chun. Maybe instead of just selling it, just have a conversation, just break it down, say, hey, what's your name, why are you interested, ask questions, just to create that relationship where it's not here to just try to get something from you. It's just a matter of let's be friends. And when you want to be friends, I think that's the first step of building trust. Dennis, what do you think? That your Sifu presented that aspect of trying to build the trust?
No, it was actually very short lived. As I mentioned, it was just, I think it was like conversation kind of beat around the bush, giving instead of the straight to the point answer for me personally for what Wing Chun was, or the style of martial arts my Sifu was teaching, is a close quarter combat style from China, Chinese, right, Chinese kung fu. That, I think that was the answer he was kind of looking for, but the reply that he gave and said was like, it was created by a woman, and all these kind of different components that is around surrounding Wing Chun and the history of it, but not straight to the point. So I think that was where it may have fell off, and then it kind of ended with my Sifu just giving him a business card. But that was the last time we heard of him.
So, Dennis, let me put in my point number three. I think this could be a separate conversation on its own or separate topic, but there must be an action item or closing the deal for what your Sifu did with this individual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can share a little bit about myself. I actually sold phones before too, so I had a little bit of a formal education on selling. No, Dennis and I didn't work together at the same company, but we did kind of work for one of the big telecommunication companies, and selling phone was something, I guess, entry level sales job that many young professional might have done in their career. But what why I bring this point up is, did your Sifu have any kind of actionable items for this individual? You mentioned Sifu gave a business card,
Mm-hmm.
but I hope your Sifu took down the individual's phone number, build that relationship. You're not always going to close a deal on the first, pitch, but you need to have some sort of action, whether it's telling this individual, hey, I'm going to give you my business card, but let me take down your number, do your research first, and let's connect in a week. I hate it when you give the information to someone and there's no return. So you need to take these control into your own hand. What are your thoughts, Dennis? Did Sifu, did some action or close the deal in that capacity?
No, unfortunately not. Sifu didn't have like a pen on him or anything. He didn't take it down. Unfortunately, he didn't really think ahead. He thought that this individual was interested enough that he would return on his own. But when I followed up with Sifu a week later about this person, he said that there was no response. He did not book for a demo, or kind of like we didn't see him around anymore either. So I think that ship has clearly sailed.
Yeah, so I think that is a good conversation on elevator pitch. I think there was some takeaways there. I leave it to you, Dennis. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
Sifu is your in essence your master. It might be harder to give these criticism feedback, but if you have a close relationship with your Sifu, maybe he already knows this lesson learned. Take down contact information.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of do this subconsciously now. For my regular work, I like to have, hey, let's follow up 2 weeks from now, just because, I know that, it's very easy to make assumptions that, someone truly understands, whether you're, telling them something or selling them something. I think they're always having a follow up will, it will do you justice in whatever kind of, pitch you're doing. Yeah, how does that sound, Dennis?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. This is a great takeaway. This is a lot of people can benefit from this, not only from my seafood, but all our listeners. I think these are very critical 3 points that you should apply every day. But um, you know, that is one example. But I think John, you kind of came across something else as well, right? Like a situation. Do you want to share that as well for to our listeners?
Yeah, for sure. When I proposed that we talk about elevator pitch, we kind of branched out and, talked about some other ideas. And I think one of the, good old classic elevator pitch that everyone should have ready under their belt. If you say you don't need to do this, I think you're BSing, calling BS. So the elevator pitch, I think everyone should just have under their belt, under their repertoire is knowing how to go in and ask for, more salary or, negotiate, hourly rates. And that's the most classic elevator pitch where I think, you should practice for. And, I can kind of talk a little bit more about this, once I kind of get your thoughts on it, Dennis. Like, why don't you share, what are your thought process when you go into a, salary discussion? Just because, I've kind of had a little bit of formal education and I've
Mm-hmm.
seen real life examples of this go on. And also I've been in situations where I have to ask for more money. It's not an easy task, but Dennis, what are your takes on asking for more money?
I think my experience would be more very recently. I got a opportunity with working in this new company. The role itself was a little bit more entry on my side, so me coming with a lot of experience, I felt like I had the leverage, the upper hand to request for more. So the strategy I did was, looking at what common averages there are for this role itself in the market, kind of gauge there, maybe look up some comments from individuals, and even within that specific role in that company, what people were talking about, just having these kind of pieces in mind, and then from there, I kind of dial it up based on what I can bring and what the changes are. It really depends on the job description and what's been displayed, and then the conversation. If I feel a little bit confident, do they feel really engaged, and then from there, I would set a number that I would feel comfortable with, and then that's where the negotiation would continue. Meaning, are they able to supply, or will they be lower? Will I be satisfied? But of course, I always go for the upper end of what I believe the my salary to be, and then if they kind of start cutting from there, then I still have a comfort threshold. But that's usually my tactic. But I've never been in a situation where the same current role, and we talk about salary raises or things like that. But I would think that most of our viewers or listeners would love to hear, John, if you can share some of that tips.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let me just kind of break down what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you were able to articulate yourself in the interview and in the process, and not to ask you to tell out the whole world what your salary is, but you kind of pretty much either got what you got or got maybe more than what you were looking for. I don't know if you can share that much, but it's just kind of to help me build my point, right?
Yeah, so I slightly got higher than uh, what I wanted, uh, but it's not what I no, it was not the higher end of the initial number I gave. So it is slightly lower than that. However, I do know that for sure that this salary I have right now, um, in all of the market, is a lot higher. So, generally, I'm pretty happy with it.
All right, so that's good. So, obviously you did something right, and that this is where the point I want to bring in. And put it this way, your interview, your conversation, all of this is an elevator pitch. I know you're not going to be an elevator for like 30 minutes to an hour because an interview can be that long. But, you're still in an environment where you got to pitch, sell yourself, why this company should hire you. And, you must have done something right. And, for these job postings, and I know the type of work you do, there's many candidates on the market. And, one of these job posting could see, 200 applicants easily. So, for you to be picking out of this kind of cream of the crop, it means you must have done something right. So the term I actually wanted to bring up today was halo effect, halo bias. And pretty much this term just means that, the impression that you first make, it will put a, impression onto the other person. Um, how I would position this is, you know, either you were one of the first candidates that stood out or one of the last candidates that stood out. Um, Maybe it's good that we look into the actual definition of halo bias, or it's called halo effect. And I learned this term in school, and typically first impression counts, and you're going to hear this a lot. First impression. So, Dennis, what can you tell us the definition of halo bias?
Sure. So, according to Google, halo effect. This definition states that the tendency for an impression created in one area to influence opinion in another area.
Great. So that's why I brought this up today, because it's so relevant for elevator pitch and so important to be prepared and know your stuff before, going into an elevator pitch. You want to leave a lasting impression. Even the first few words you say in an elevator pitch, you might not shake anyone's hand at this time because of COVID, but, kind of in the good old days, a firm handshake, shows confidence. And I'm pretty sure in your interview, Dennis, you showed confidence. You showed, this employer why they should hire you. So, this term is very important. If you don't know this term already, I think it's worthwhile kind of studying into it. Seeing some tips and techniques. It's not about copying someone. It's about looking up what works already. Confidence never goes out of style. You get what I mean, right, Dennis?
Yeah,
So,
you know,
you know,
it's that.
especially in elevator pitches,
Hmm.
being confident, it's something that, is much needed. Um, I do have a few notes here. I do kind of want to ask you another question, Dennis. Kind of in your own words, maybe, you can kind of tell some of our audience, you know, can halo bias help you in any way when you have to do a elevator pitch?
Hmm. Um, that is a great question. Um, how does Halo affect? You know what? I'm gonna be very blunt here. John, can you repeat that question one more time for me, please?
Yeah, no problem. I think I worded it very poorly, but in your own words, how can our audience use halo bias in their elevator pitches?
I think visual appearance for sure. You know, if you're just smart, how you present yourself physically, I think shows a lot in volume of what you can or cannot, do. Right? Like, if someone is more dependable, and I would assume they're more well dressed and kind of have those kind of qualities that makes me want to trust them. Right? Um, hmm. What else can an individual have for halo effects? I think also is just in their speech. Just not There's no stuttering. There's the uses of jargon specific to that role that in the industry wise they will understand. Examples of previous projects and of that sort. Maybe some recommendations from certain individuals that through networking of that piece as well. Those recommendations come a long way. As recommendation is one thing, but if you can present yourself to match that recommendation as well, it speaks in volumes. So appearance, speech, I think are the two main ones that I can think of at the moment that the individuals can use, in an elevator pitch. But am I missing anything, John? Would you add another point to that?
No, this is good. I'm just kind of asking you in your own words. So,
Hmm.
I think those are very, meaningful and helpful points, especially for anyone who is new to some of these terminology. The only reason we know these terminology is, we kind of went to school for business, but, when you're in school, you don't really think about it much. But, kind of when you're in the real world, you realize, oh, sometimes stuff they teach in school is useful.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I emphasize the word sometimes.
I agree. I must be a really bad student because I've totally forgot about this term at all. Maybe because I didn't pursue the same field as John, but first time for everything. And I've been using Halo effects in the ways that I pointed out, and I didn't even notice. But that comes with experience. So, and many of our listeners, you may already be doing this already. So, you're just putting it into words and perspective for you.
Perfect, perfect. So why don't we kind of wrap it up? I want to maybe just go over our maybe takeaways for today, and then we can continue another podcast another day. Does that sound good, Dennis?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let me start off our recap. So, I think based on the story that Dennis provided us today, the three takeaways that, I would say, number one, be a subject matter expert in what you're going to present, what you're going to sell, what you're going to pitch. Number two, build that rapport, that trust with whoever you're selling to. And then number three, make sure to have an actionable item, try to close the deal. You're not always going to close a sale, after every, first interaction, but, you have to shoot your shot, maybe we can get funny here. If you don't shoot your shot, you're not going to, get the girl you want, right? So make sure you have some sort of actionable item after every pitch, whether it's a follow up, whether it's just an exchange to get someone's contact information down, if they're willing to share it. You just never want a pitch to go cold, and that's kind of what we've learned today. Dennis, how about you? What are your takeaways today from our chat about elevator pitch and halo effect and bias?
I've taken away a lot from this, and I believe this knowledge here will be very beneficial to my Sifu for the next upcoming candidate or lead. But also, I think John, that shooting the shot saying, I think it came from Wayne Gretzky. He didn't mention anything about girls, but I think it works same way. But yeah, this is very eye opening stuff.
Perfect. So, why don't we end it here? I want to thank everyone for tuning in and, giving our podcast conversation. If you got it all the way down here, then, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and, see you guys next week.
All right, take care, guys. Have a great evening, night, or morning, wherever you listen from. Bye now.